Great. What questions do you have for me? Yes, sir.
Why is there so many police officers in every school?
All right, so if you go back to Valentine's Day, we all know about Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. One of the things that came out of that happened actually in the middle of the legislative session up in Tallahassee. The governor convened a work group, and one of the things that they set as a goal that was ultimately put into legislation is that there be a law enforcement or a public safety officer at every school in the state of Florida. And so as a district, we had a couple choices. One was the Guardian program, in which we could have a member of the staff go to about 3 weeks of training with the Sheriff's Department and be allowed to carry a firearm on our campus. That would meet the requirements. Or we could go the route of law enforcement officer. And so our board was very clear from the start that if we were going to have guns on our campus, they were going to be in the possession of sworn law enforcement officers. So that's the first major decision that they had to make. Once they made that decision, they had to decide which agency was going to provide that service. Prior to Valentine's Day, we had law enforcement officers on the campus of every middle and high school through partnerships with our local law enforcement, with the Venice Police Department, Northport Police Department, Sarasota Police Department, and the Sarasota Sheriff's Department. But where it left us with 23 elementary schools that didn't have an officer. And so we went through the process of evaluating what the best option for the district is, and they made the decision to create a police force whose sole mission is the protection of our schools. And so that's what we've been working towards this year. One of your speakers will be the first employee of our police department, the first hire that we made, our chief of police, and then he was charged with hiring the officers. They are now in our elementary schools, one of our middle schools, one of our high schools, and Triad, with the goal of moving into all of our schools for the 1920 school year.
Mr. Grohowski?
Yeah,
Chief Grohowski?
Well,
okay, and he is the man in charge of addressing all of those questions about safety that you guys had.
All right. Real brief, I've been a police officer for 23 years. I worked for the city of Danbury, Connecticut for 6. I retired from Port St. Lucie on the other side of Florida. And I've been a chief now for going on 3.5 years. As a police officer, I was a SWAT team member. I was a SWAT team sniper, a team leader, a shift commander. So somebody asked about what's the difference between real cops and school cops. I don't know, you tell me. We're real cops. So we do the same thing that every cop does. We're trained the same way. My police academy that I went to was in Connecticut, and it's a boot camp. You live there Monday to Friday for 6 months. You do what they do, like in any kind of boot camp in the military. And if we were good, and we kept our rooms right, and our bunks were right, sometimes we go home on the weekends. So that's kind of how I was it. So going to college to go to the police academy, that's easy. That's kind of nice. So that's how I started. And most of the men and women that I have the pleasure of working with, and I say working with because nobody works for me, I work for them. So when you talk about leadership, as a component of leadership is followership, servant leadership. So I serve the people that I work with to give them the tools and the things they need to do their jobs well. So as you think about life, and I heard some of the mottos and creeds that you guys committed to in your, I don't know what the right slogan is, so to say, but loyalty, that virtue. Think about those things, think about those words, because those words are what our code of life is. We do oaths of office, and I've had a couple swearing-ins of new officers at schools, and I talk to school kids about what that means, what an oath is. It's our commitment to uphold the Constitution for everybody's rights. Every single person in this room has rights, and my job and my duty is to uphold your rights. So that's a little bit about me. I'm sure you got a ton of questions, and there's a bunch I could probably feed off of from the superintendent. Yes, sir.
We're in K9 units.
Are they what?
K9.
Not yet. But I'm thinking about it. Do I want to
give
be
them any ideas?
Yes, sir.
So say there was a threat on campus, say in the manner of Stoneman Douglas, what would be the officer on campus's first response?
Our first response, and as crazy as it sounds, is we run towards trouble. We run towards gunfire. Our job, as hard as it may seem to be, and as illogical as it may seem to be, is go towards where the trouble is and stop it from happening, stop harm from happening to others. So that's how we train, that's what we prepare for, and that's what our duty is. Yes. Yes, I've written police reports and arrested police officers. So yes, the rule of law is no one's above the law. So that same Constitution applies to me. Those rules apply to everybody who puts on a uniform. We are no different, no better, no worse than anybody in this room. Yes?
What can we as students do to help make schools a safer place?
There's a program, See It, Say It. Dr. Bowden talked about that flip-flop in the gate. Well, just as much as you can say something, do something about it. If there's something you can act upon to make your schools a safer environment, help me help you. Take that flip-flop out. Report that. Let somebody know. I have to have your trust. You have to know me, and you have to know the officers that work in the schools that you go to, and they have to earn your trust. Because if you don't trust me, if you don't think you can relate to me, or if you tell me something I'm not going to do my job, you're not going to tell me anything. So in order for us to work together, there's anybody here of a Bobby? You know what the word Bobby comes from? Sir Robert Peel. He's the original Bobby. The first police department in metropolitan London was formed in the 1800s, and it was all about community policing. And the whole idea is the police are the public and the public are the police. We require your trust and approval to do our jobs well. So if we don't have your trust, we got a police department, and you see police departments in the news that have problems. And why is that? Because the community's lost their trust. So I want your trust. I got to earn that. So give me that opportunity, give the men and women that I work with and in the other local law enforcement departments their ability to earn your trust.
He did his homework and added some things to that. That's a good thing. Yeah, I was interested in school, of course, when my kids started school, 35 years ago. But as I was working in the school, I was seeing that, you know, there were budget cuts were happening and things were going on, and I wanted to know what I could do to change that. And one of the things I did was run for the Florida legislature. I ran in 1990 and lost, but came close. But then I felt that when I was doing this, this was definitely something I wanted to do. I found a voice. I have a voice that carries in a crowd, so that helps me to be heard. And so people normally can hear me when I'm speaking, so they know what it is I'm looking for. So I ran for the legislature in 1992 and won, and in 94, 96, and 98, and 8-year term limits. I went back home, and my children blessed me with grandchildren. So I was having another wonderful life. And then there was issues going on with the school board. They were fighting. We were going through superintendents. That was before he came here. And I decided I needed to step up again and do something and run for the school board. We were going through budget cuts because the economy fell out. But one thing I think I was able to do is bring my legislative experience and my ability to look at the bigger picture. One of my best things that I've ever done on the school board is when, remember, well, you guys might not remember, when the economy just went to pits, our property values dropped, there were no homes being built, and we were people losing their jobs. We had something before us, a bond issue, to bond out the money that we were going to be getting to rebuild our high schools. And it was like, no, maybe we shouldn't do this because the property values are dropping, the tax dollars that we're getting are dropping. But we looked at those numbers, and I said, we as school board members owe it to this community to do something. We have the power to do something. We can put a lot of these construction workers that are laid off, we can put them to work by getting that bond and by getting our high schools redone. We finished up well, then it was SCTI, now it's a Sun Coast Technical College. And we did Booker High School with some federal grants, and we did Venice High School, and we were doing this. The cost had dropped dramatically. I mean, it was a win-win-win. Not only did we put people to work, but we used our tax dollars wisely because it cost us considerably less. In fact, we were able to redo Sarasota High School also, and then start down in the South County Technical School too. So it was a win-win-win for all of us. Plus, our contractors are still in business. So I think my ability as a legislator allows me to see all that and to explain that to our other board members who are shaky about doing something like that. And I still say that's the best thing I ever did while I was on the school board. But I've been an advocate for public schools. Didn't understand at the time how important that would be as a school board member, because we actually have school board members around the state that are actually advocating for more privatization of our schools. And that is a big thing that we are looking at right now in the legislature, because we've got legislators that are putting more and more dollars into privatizing our schools, using tax dollars roundabout ways to pay for kids to take vouchers to go to schools. The problem I see with that is we're getting these different, in fact, we're going to have 3 layers of schools. We're going to have our public schools, then we're going to have our charter schools, and then we're going to have these vouchers for private schools. They're not a level playing field, and the oversight for all of them are different, and they're looking at having more tests and all these other things, and we're saying stop. Stop all the regulations on the public schools, help us and fund our public schools. Because right now, there's over $1 billion a year going to the voucher program from the businesses can give their taxes to the voucher program instead of to schools. Everybody hears me. This is the soapbox I stand on every time.